Welcome to On Our Watch, a podcast about coastal erosion and sustainability in Louisiana, as well as the implications for coastal systems worldwide. My name is Marian Evans. I'm a filmmaker and a producer of the documentary On Our Watch, a feature-length film about Louisiana's coastal land loss crisis. The film's director, Jonathan Evans, and I are proud to produce this podcast series that will continue to explore important coastal issues through conversations with local residents, community leaders, and experts. In this episode, we're speaking with Jacqueline Richard. Jacqueline is the Director of Coastal Studies and GIS Technologies at Nunez Community College, where she has led the program since 2022. Jacqueline has decades of experience in the field and the classroom studying Louisiana's disappearing coast. And now, our interview with Jacqueline Richard. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Of course. So you've been working as an educator for quite some time now. So I wanted to ask, what led you to seek a career in education and specifically science-based education?
That's a great question. So I originally started my journey not in the coastal field at all, but I've always been just really interested in the earth. I kind of grew up with hippie parents, so we did a lot of camping and hiking and just always interested in what I was seeing and why it got there and how different things happen to the earth. And so as I moved through college, I decided to major in geology. And I really wanted to be a vertebrate paleontologist, so I wanted to study dinosaurs, and that's what my degree is in. So my whole pre-coastal career, I was just obsessed with dinosaurs and actually did a lot of research on the big sauropod dinosaurs, big long neck, long tailed dinosaurs, so it was really cool. And loved getting out in the field every summer. But then I was here when Katrina hit, and I was actually pregnant with my first son. And so when Katrina hit, it kind of shifted my focus. I really love paleontology and studying past life because it's a really great clue to where we are now and how we got here. But I wanted to use that knowledge to help make a difference because I saw the need for that. And so after Katrina, I just started bringing students out to volunteer with tree planting, and it just kind of literally took off from there.
Okay, wow, interesting. And so in 2022, you joined Nunez Community College as the Director of Coastal Studies and GIS Technologies. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit about what that role entails for you and what you're most focused on in that position?
Yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy being in the coastal space because I said that's kind of where my passion is. So my role as the director is to, make sure our program is current, our curriculum is current, working with industry partners, nonprofit, state and federal partners to make sure that our students are prepared for the workforce. But then, like I said, making sure that our curriculum is current, any cool stuff that I could add in there that students would really like to learn. And then job placement, looking for grants to help support internships or, getting students in the actual job field. So what I've been focused on really the last year, our GIS program is really solid. The other professor in the program has way more experience than I will ever have teaching GIS. And so it's really, really rock solid. So I've been working on adding in coastal restoration pieces for either the general public to come back and learn about coastal restoration, or people that maybe want to work for nonprofits or wildlife and fisheries to understand permitting processes, how we take water samples. So I've really kind of been diving into some of that and getting that piece of the program going.
Cool. And for those who may not know, what exactly is GIS Technologies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So GIS stands for Geographical Information Systems. So if you've ever used Google Earth or used directions to get home from work, that's all GIS. So it's taking really complicated data and making it visual so that way you can see it. So we use it in the coastal field, right, to help, map our coastal restoration projects. We can track successes or, potential failures so we know how to change our projects in the future. We can map out vegetative plantings. We can use drones to monitor, the health of vegetative planting. So GIS is really useful in seeing kind of that bigger overall picture of what's going on along our coast.
Very interesting. And so you mentioned that a big part of this program is preparing students to be in the coastal workforce. So what are some of the careers that students can pursue after going through this program?
Yeah, so first, our program is it's a stackable credential. So we find it really important for our students to be able to enter and exit their education as they need. We know students today, especially at the community college level, have a much higher demand on who they are, right? They may have children to take care of, parents to take care of, right? All sorts of other things. And so our program, you can kind of start off with a career and technical certificate and come in, get a couple of courses under your belt and learn some of those skills. You can move on to a technical diploma, which kind of integrates some more of that liberal arts knowledge, or you can come for your full associates. So that's the nice piece, is after the first year of this program, students have all of their remote sensing and GIS classes under their belt, so they can go get hired if they need to, and then come back. And so it's just kind of a way to encourage students to keep going. But with that, right, there's different levels of jobs. So what's interesting is our student pool kind of comes in two groups. The first group are students that are brand new, fresh out of high school, and are coming for their associates, which is always exciting. And then we have our second group of students which already have bachelor's degrees that are coming back for that remote sensing and GIS certification. So we pretty much find our students are hired pretty quickly with that GIS certification. I have a student now that was hired before he even graduated, which is really fantastic. So most of our students are getting hired as GIS technicians, or they're currently working for nonprofits employing that GIS information in the plantings they're doing. But we see that students can obviously move on to higher education if they want four-year degrees, or work in wildlife and fisheries, DEQ, private firms, doing environmental surveying or sampling. So there's a whole host of jobs just in coastal. But it is important to note that our college supports all the support services as well that coastal restoration needs. For example, we have a really great synergy with our welding department. So our welding students, at the end when they complete their final exam, they're just going to weld on a piece of rebar, right, and show that they can do the welds, and then it gets tossed. Well, instead of doing that, our students build living oyster reef cages. So they get to practice all of those welds, and then we work with the Miro Foundation to deploy those living oyster reef cages out in the Chandeleur Sound. So coastal kind of has many arms, but it's really important to note that you can be a welder, an electrician, or a GIS technician, right, and still work in the coastal space.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you feel like the overall coastal workforce is growing?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll talk about the WIND program in a little bit, but yeah, I definitely feel like our coastal, all the support services is definitely growing as people are kind of realizing that they don't have to follow those traditional routes that, if they're really passionate about the environment or want to make a difference in the environment around them, but they really like construction, well, we need you on coastal restoration jobs, right? We need people to drive the boats. We need people to fix those motors. So yeah, I would definitely say that realization of the coastal workforce has definitely gotten bigger.
Yeah. So earlier this year, I know you and your students had the opportunity to participate in a wetland tree monitoring project with the CRCL. So what was that experience like, and why is it important for you to actually bring your students out into the field on projects like that?
Yeah, so I've partnered with CRCL since 2007, which feels impossibly long ago, and short all at the same time. But yeah, the tree monitoring is a really fantastic experience for our students. So what the tree monitoring entails is CRCL does a fantastic job, right, with their coastal restoration and planting events. And, they tag 10% of their trees. And so they're working in partnership with a lot of colleges and universities to bring students out and monitor the health of those tagged trees. So we go out, we measure the diameter, we measure the height, we talk about how these trees are doing. So that way it helps figure out future success for restoration. But it's important for students to get out in the field to learn this stuff because, you can only learn about the environment so much from a book, right, before you need to be making those connections. But students then really realize the impact of what they're doing when they're out in the field. the very first time I did tree monitoring with Nunez, this was 2 years ago, brought students out, and it was my environmental science students. None of them were coastal majors. And after that event, 2 of them switched their majors to coastal because they wanted to make that impact. And so taking students out in the field, no matter what subject it is just really invaluable because they're making those connections that they only read about. And then when they see it, it all makes sense. So yeah, I've been bringing students out with CRCL, volunteering and planting trees, I said, since 2007. And all of those students that I've brought out that have gone on those events all keep in contact with me and still participate in volunteer events or are very vocal about our coast. So it really gives that intrinsic deep meaning to students, right? It just becomes more valuable than just words on paper.
Yeah, it seems like that's a crucial piece of learning about the coast, to actually experience it yourself and see the progress, and see what you can have an impact on.
Yeah, most people, unfortunately, don't look over the levees. When you go look at the river, you can't see the river I personally live 3 blocks from it and I can't see it because the levee's in the way, right?
Yeah.
So people kind of have this false sense of what's going on over the levees. You just think, oh, it's tons of marsh, we're fine. So when you physically take people over the levees into a restoration project, it opens up their eyes in so many ways, but ways that can be positive, right, to help our coast.
Another project I wanted to ask you about is the QIPRA Watermarks 360 virtual field trip.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what that project is all about and what was your role in it?
Yeah, it is by far one of my favorite projects. So the idea for this project actually happened probably like 12 years ago. I was teaching one of my historical geology classes, which is life through time. And I was teaching about this really old fossil bed. And it's really hard to teach about these giant mountains that used to be underwater when you live in Louisiana and there's no mountains or rocks around to look at. And I saw this guy that had a GoPro on, and you can click on the rocks and see the fossils, and it was just really cool and engaging. And so I started thinking, man, wouldn't that be great if we had that for our coast? Because we have students that live up in the northern part of Louisiana, or even students that live in Jefferson Parish that can't get out right to the coast because it's really cost prohibitive. The idea didn't catch on until COVID, when everyone's like, oh yeah, virtual is a great idea. So fortunately, I have some really fantastic partners at QIPRA, and I kind of pitched the idea of a virtual field trip to them, and they loved it, which was great. So I work with QIPRA, and I work with Central Creativity, which is our curriculum partner, and we all come together and pick these projects that QIPRA has completed and walk students through the whole project, right? So how did this place get to this point? What's the history of this place, the indigenous history of this place? What's the biodiversity? What's the engineering, the economic impact? So looking at a coastal restoration project from all the aspects. So we have fully supported curriculum that goes with it, and then 5 or 6 generally interactive videos, short videos, right, as well. And then we have 360 hotspot videos that are embedded in our program. So it's just a really fantastic way to bring the coast into the classroom. Because I said, as an environmental science teacher, we can talk about tornadoes in Kansas all day, but we need to talk about what's going on here, right? And so it's really great. A great resource for teachers to have that to put in their classroom. So I'm one of the writers of the program. So we have a great little group that works on this, and it's a lot of fun. We're working on our next project now, our 3rd installation of the 360 project, and it's great fun. We get to go out and film next month. It'll be in the western part of the state. I won't give it away, but it's really an exciting project.
So where all is it being utilized? What are the different institutions?
That's a great question. So, you have this idea and you think it's a great idea, but you don't realize how maybe great of an idea it is, right, until it's deployed. So our first project we did on the Caminada Headlands, right, which is right there by Grand Isle. So that project's been going for 2 years now. It's been live for teachers to use. We've had over 2 million website visits.
Wow.
Our curriculum's been downloaded, over 400,000 times, and it's been downloaded in all 50 states. And so we're seeing that literally every state in the country has been using this information to bring into their classroom.
That's incredible.
It's really exciting. Yeah. And it's great to be able to get these, they're very important issues here in Louisiana. But, somebody in Montana may not really understand, or somebody in the watershed, right? We talk so much about how farm fields, right, put all their pesticides in the river and it comes down here. Well, now those people in the watershed and the upper watershed have the chance to really understand what's happening down here at our coast.
So what do you think are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the course of your career as an educator?
Oh boy, how much time do we have? I think for me, that it's the way that you approach education is really, really important. As I started my career, I came from a very traditional education background where, the professor stands at the podium and does their thing. And that's not who I am as a teacher. So I have found my most success with students, just really being myself and letting my passion shine. And I feel like that's really been one of the biggest lessons is, we all kind of stand behind our titles or things like that. But if there's something you're passionate about, the students will feel that and they will really dive into it with you. I mean, I've had students that are, art majors or music majors or engineering majors that have really dove into geology. I think one of my favorite students, I was nominated for a Teaching and Excellence Award, and her letter of support was that she took my class on accident. She thought she signed up for another class, took it, but it was like the best mistake of her life, right? Because she learned all this stuff. And so being not doubting students, not looking down on them because they're younger, they have a lot of information, they have a lot of ingenuity. So I don't know if I could really bundle that up in one lesson, but just those connections between educators and students are really important when they're developed, like when they're really developed like a friendship instead of, a talking at you kind of relationship.
That's so interesting. I think it speaks to what you were saying about like you can have different interests and then you can still find a way to connect to the coast no matter what you like to do, whether it's art or music or engineering,
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell my students that, my main goal when they leave my classes is not that they're going to remember Mohs hardness scale or how to read a seismic, right, and do interpretation, but just the love of the planet, right, and that we have to take care of this place. Yeah. And I feel like I hit that goal just about every time. And so, when you live with those realistic expectations instead of pie in the sky expectations, it's very helpful.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming projects or plans that you're looking forward to at the moment? I know you mentioned a wind program. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'm really excited about our new wind turbine technician program, which is housed under the Coastal Department. So that's in my purview. But I'm really excited because we know that there's this big wave, fortunately, of sustainable energy that's coming into our country, right? Solar's been around for a while, onshore wind's been around for a while, and now we're finally getting into the offshore wind space. And it's exciting because, Louisiana has an immense amount of offshore knowledge, right? We invented offshore drilling. So we know how to build the physical infrastructure that's needed. And, we have people that are fiberglass experts here and all this kind of great stuff. So we have the first wind turbine technician program in the state. And it's stackable credential as well, right, where students can kind of come and go and pick. But the thing that's really exciting is we're Global Wind Organization certified, which is an international accreditation board. We don't have an accreditation board here in the US yet, so we built it to the bigger standards. So that means our students can have the opportunity to travel anywhere in the world and work as a wind turbine technician. And we just received a pretty sizable grant that will fund 20 students to go through our program. So I'm really excited. That's starting in the fall, so I'm really excited about getting that program kicked off and bringing more meaningful careers, here to our vulnerable communities. These jobs, just with a 1-year certification, these jobs start at $60,000, which is higher than the state average. So, those are very meaningful jobs that will make a huge impact in someone's life and family. So I'm really excited about that. And then on a personal note, I'm really excited because my partner and I are working on restoring 10.5 acre forest. And we are currently, we love to go around and collect native seeds and increase genetic diversity of the area. Because we know this area is eventually in the future going to probably be submerged with sea level rise and climate change. But we want to create a refuge for animals, right, in the meantime, in that flux space. And so we currently have between us about 1,400 cypress trees growing. And so it's a lot of watering and a lot of time, but it's really fantastic to know that, all those trees in my backyard are going to be in the ground and could be an old growth forest, right, in the future. So yeah, I have a lot of exciting stuff on the personal and the work front. It's really great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Jacqueline.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation. This has been great.
Thank you for listening to On Our Watch. We hope you enjoyed our discussion with Jacqueline Richard. Don't forget to subscribe to On Our Watch on your favorite podcast app to be notified about future episodes. You can find our feature-length documentary On Our Watch, as well as a video version of today's episode, in the links below. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back with another episode next week. This podcast is made possible through support from the Greater New Orleans Foundation and executive produced by Bruno UK Steiner.